So it crushes the little guy. It crushes the small business owner.
So many people don't understand that. It's actually it's very simple when you describe it, but I think
But it
people don't
comes
know.
back to optics and sensationalism, because when I went and testified in front of the city council, right, waste of my time because they
Oh, you
weren't
did? I
listening.
didn't know that.
I did. I can send you the clip. I called the guy out. I said he was a liar because he said all brokers do is open the door. I said, look, it's not that easy, right? If all we do is open a door and get paid, then everyone would do it, right? I don't know. But I mean, you could. I think also people are angry because of the cost of living, and because people are angry, they're just looking to punch down on any and everyone. And I
Yeah,
think to live your life like that is just, how miserable do you have to be, right? So sure, brokers are getting attacked right now, right? If I walked in to a coffee place, right, and there was a sign that the people making the coffee, the baristas, were trying to make more money, right? It was a sign that said, "Support us. We're trying to get our wages up by $2," right? I wouldn't be like, "All you guys do is pour the coffee in a cup. Why do you want to get paid?" We're like, "No, I couldn't do that. I couldn't deal with some, you know, waspy, woman coming in being like, 'Let me get a mochaccino frappa latte with a cortado and a macchiato and two.'" I don't know how to make that, right?
right.
So I'm not going to punch down on someone else and say pathetic, right?
Yeah.
So, but people now are punching down on brokers, saying, "Well, what you do is so easy and this and that." Like, when did it become okay to just punch down on everyone's job? I don't know. It's just
I think
really
because you represent in people's minds, you represent um you represent the landlord, you represent the
But
property
am I
owners.
mad at the barista because the coffee is $7, or am I mad at the corporation? I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, you're
Absolutely.
mad at, like, the brokers don't set the rents.
No, absolutely. They don't set the rents, but they it's been framed where it's like, oh, why do I have to pay you? He or she should pay you, and
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know,
And look, if they wanted that, right? So what this law, Fair Act, whatever it did, is it took away free choice. It took away
right.
free will, right? Because the day that it passed, 57% of the market, this is a fact, was no fee. Okay.
Mm,
Now, 100% of the market's no fee, but everybody raised their rent. If you
yeah,
had a no fee listing sitting at 6,200 no fee, and your competition with a fee raised it from 57 to 61, you're not going to stay at 62. You're going to increase, right?
yeah.
So it gave everybody
Because
an
you can.
excuse. It gave everybody an excuse to raise the rent. Now, the
Mm,
bigger landlords, we could call them evil corporations, BlackRock, etc. They have an algorithm, okay? And
mm,
their rents change every 24 hours. So if you look at Zillow or Street Easy and you look at a big building like let's just say Stuytown or American Copper Building, you see an arrow, prices up $48 from yesterday, then it's down 28. They have an algorithm. So when their algorithm sees all the rents going up, you think the algorithm's going to be like, "Now we chilling?" No, of course it's going to go
you're
up.
gonna go.
So but people who made this bill, right? 23-year
Yeah,
old who with a trust fund, right? This is Jay-Z's lawyer essentially, right? So he went to a private school. He never had to struggle. He doesn't understand this stuff. And I'm not.
who's the
That's not even to put him down or to punch down on him, right? But
yeah,
if you ask me to come on your podcast and talk about how the tariffs are going to affect the food supply chain, I'd be like, "Don't call me. I don't know anything about that.
yeah.
It's not my
But
area of expertise.
you
That's
know
not in my
about this.
circle of competence."
Yeah, yeah. No, I
And
mean,
if I tried to pass policy on that, probably wouldn't be very good. Now what they could have done, you know, what they could have done, I go back to, I did testify in front of city council, is they could have capped the broker's fee. They could have regulated it and said you can't charge more than 8.3%, which is a month's rent, right?
mhm,
Then the rents would have stayed where they were and people would have negotiated.
yeah.
Instead, they're like, it's illegal to pay a fee. Now the rents have to go up.
That's
Okay.
crazy, bro. That's
Regulation
crazy.
is good. I'm not, listen, there's tons of bad actors in my business, in my field. There's bad actors in every field.
Every field, yeah.
I said to you last time, I could count on this hand how many great teachers I had K through 12. Shit, I could count how many good teachers I had K through 12
Hmm.
on this hand.
Yeah,
Okay. Do you see me marching to cut teachers' wages? No, teachers are underpaid.
yeah.
And they got to deal with kids whose attention spans are TikTok. 15
Right.
seconds. How do you teach
A whole
World War
nother level.
II in 15 seconds? I don't know. Pay them more. I think everyone should get paid more.
I mean, I do too. I mean, there's certain professions I think should get paid more, but I think that this whole cost of living. And here's another thing. So I'll just say this too, because I think the thing people are missing, they are looking to, like you said, to punch down on somebody. It's somebody's fault that everything costs so much. But I think what's happened is that people are going to have to repurpose their skills, because at the end of the day, the issue is, yes, the cost of living is nasty, and obviously the housing market is what it is. But if you pay everybody more, or if you just give something free, somebody's going to pay for it. And it's always, like you said, it's important, I think, in the conversation to see both sides of it. Because if you do free buses, or if you charge, just for example, even the developer you're talking about, move their business. There are other people who have money can pivot and move their business, um, and they can
Sure.
move. So it's
Yeah.
it's not a problem. People who do business are trying to make money. So at the end of the day, it's like, I think that we got to repurpose people to have certain skills to add value to the marketplace, to demand some money. Because at the end of the day, look, yeah, anybody can get their license, right? But they're not going to go and do what you do right away. It's going to take
Sure.
time
Yeah.
and work.
Absolutely.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
saying?
look. I mean, I
So
think we're facing, facing bigger issues with. I think they said like 80% of Gen Z. They asked them your top three dream jobs, and everybody wants to be an influencer, right? But that doesn't really add. And look, once again, I'm not even punching down on influencers, right? Because everything, anyone who does something at a very high level, who's the best at what they do, I would never punch down on them. I'm fascinated by it. So the best influencers in the world, right? From the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep, it's all about capturing and creating content. Imagine living your
sure,
life like that. I wouldn't want to do that. Like you wake up and you're like, you have your first bowel movement and you're like, I took this probiotic,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and then you
It ain't
have
for
breakfast
everybody,
and you have to film your breakfast, okay,
right?
and then you have to take a photo of your breakfast and you have to take a video with your breakfast, right, and then you got to go to the gym, you got to film that, right? So I would never like, but to want to, for that regular person to say that's what I want to do or that's what I want to be, it's a little alarming.
Well, that's because the problem is, and again, this goes back to what we have going on right now in America. Like, we live in it's a service based society. So at the
Now,
end of the day,
yeah,
it's extremely service based, right? So at the end of the day, it's like everything isn't for everybody, and that's part of the issue with, I think, the workforce, is that people are entitled, and people feel like, okay, if I'm not making enough money, I need to be given something. And I think that there's a lot of situations where people have to repurpose their skill. I know a lot of people who have pivoted. You pivoted. I know I pivoted throughout my life to do things. If I didn't get the results I wanted, the money I wanted, I pivoted to do other things. And I think that's one of the biggest issues, because it's not that, people, when I speak like this, that I'm against, people who are in poverty, people who are struggling. Absolutely, there should be social help, but it's not as easy just to give and just to make everything free. It just causes another problem on the back end. And I
but
think
but
the way
so
you
so
describe the rent is important.
I agree with everything you said, but what you and I did to find success was you used the term pivot, right? But we didn't get any handouts, right?
No, it's never you never
So
get a
sure,
handout.
we pivoted, but nothing was free and nothing came easy, and we've known each other for such a long time that it's right.
Hmm.
But everybody wants to skip the work, right? I want
Hmm.
to get rich, but I want to do it from setting up some drop shipping for my computer or selling a course. I want to skip the work, right? And I guess what people who buy these courses don't realize is the people who are really making money are too busy making money to sell you a course.
Facts.
Like, I genuinely believe I could write a great sales course and be like, hey, over the last 10, 11, 12 years, this is what's made me the number one rental agent at Douglas Elliman for six years in a row out of the 11 or 10 I've been in the business. This is how I did
Hmm.
it, right? But nobody would everyone would cancel because they buy my course, right, and then they look at the PDF and it would be like, okay, I work 7 days a week, you got to skip
Yep.
holidays, you got to skip birthdays, you got to do this, you got to do that. I lived in project housing, I paid $800 to a guy who, I got mercury poisoning from so much tuna, right? I did deals for free, I did deals at a huge discount, hoping that it would land something later on. I did this, and then they'd be like, I don't want to do this. Can't I just repost some stuff? Right? It's very difficult. Listen, a lot of people could be me. I don't think a lot of people want to be me because of what goes
Bro,
into it.
let me tell you, I was having this literally the same conversation, and that's the main thing. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody, and that's what I don't like as far as the conversation now. Ever since
To quote a
they
man from your hometown, That's that
Who?
shit I don't like.
Yay? Oh, right. Oh, cheap. Okay.
All right, go
Nice
ahead.
little Chicago plug right there. But
All right.
Dame Dash said you should not want a boss. You don't want, calling somebody a boss is like calling somebody daddy. And everybody jumped on this entrepreneur.
But
Being an
he's
entrepreneur,
broke, right? Just to be clear, he's broke.
well,
He squandered hundreds of millions of dollars.
here's the thing. Here's the thing.
No, okay, all right, okay,
No,
go ahead.
I listen. I feel you, but my thing with that is that here's my thing. An entrepreneur, anybody who's ever worked for themselves knows that you're going to work more. You're going to work harder when you work for yourself. You know what I'm saying? So everybody who's I've never met a successful person who works 40 hours a week and has, just to your point, I don't know people who have like great hours and all that if you're going to work for yourself. You got to really work. So this idea that everybody wants to be an entrepreneur and I'm gonna work for myself, it ain't for everybody. And like you said, when you really get into what it takes, most people aren't built for that, which is okay. I don't think
That's
it's
and
for
that's the
everybody.
other thing, and that's cut you off that I think that other people need to understand. Look, right? You have to be self-aware. You have to be able to hold opposing thoughts, and you have to be honest with yourself, right? You
Right.
could waste years of your life if you're not honest with yourself, right? So,
Mm,
and nobody is 100% honest with themselves, right? We all live in our own reality. But
mm,
when I got my license, going back a long time, my uncle Fardine, who's someone who is I look up to. So he had to escape Iran through Turkey, and it was a whole thing. And when he came
mhm,
here, he was cleaning industrial boilers. He was painting homes, and now he's a C-suite executive, which is pretty awesome, right? But there was someone I think in his hometown or something that he didn't think was smart enough to go to law school
mhm,
at the time, right? And he had, I just met this person, and then I said to him, I could never do law school, right? I just academically, I'm not inclined, okay?
mhm.
And he goes, yes, but do you understand that you being able to say out loud, like, listen, I couldn't do law school. Like, I could work 100 hours a week and hustle and grind and use my street smarts, but I could not do that type of academia. That's a talent in itself because most people are like, no, I could do it. Like, no, I couldn't do it.